Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. In all of English novels written in the past couple of centuries, very few characters have gone on to become as popular and iconic as Sherlock Holmes. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's imaginary detective gained legendary status much before Robert Downey Jr. portrayed the character in his blockbuster movie. Introduction. Written way back in 1887, A Study in Scarlet was the first novel in which Sherlock Holmes appeared. It is one of the only 4 novels in which Conan Doyle portrayed the iconic detective other than the short stories. A Study in Scarlet is the first English language detective fiction to incorporate the magnifying glass as a tool for investigation. Frankly speaking, I was never a big fan of Sherlock Holmes, though I had read the Blue Carnbuckle in school. However, I should thank my wife who gave me a collection of all the 4 novels as my birthday gift. I picked up the book just to see whether the hype was real, and it surprisingly was. Yes, the novel isn't perfect, but it is an absolute gem. Contrasting parts. The first part of the story is quite fast-paced. Dr. John Watson, the first narrator of the story, meets the young, quirky and freakish genius Sherlock Holmes, and they become flatmates. The story establishes the young Holmes as the protagonist as soon as the two future friends meet, and thereon, Holmes never fails to blow Watson's mind. To be very honest, I did not enjoy the first part of the story. Everything feels an exaggeration, however, the end of the chapter was quite a surprise. That said, the second chapter was absolutely phenomenal. The storytelling prowess of an author as revered as Conan Doyle was on display. Detailing the story brings a lifelike depiction, and more than anything else, what struck me was the way the author narrates a long and complex story with very few words, without losing the essence even for a moment. You believe what he says, and he absolutely pulls you into the narration. Summary. A Study in Scarlet is a murder mystery set in 19th century London. It has all the usual bits that you find in such stories: mysterious deaths, unknown killers, weird patterns, and clues that only the protagonist can decipher. However, what makes Sherlock Holmes so unique is that he is not infallible. He makes mistakes, and though he had the trail, he failed to prevent a murder. This gives him a more realistic appearance than most other detective characters that I have come across. Nonetheless, the first part ends with Sherlock Holmes catching the murderer in the most dramatic way. The second chapter traces the origins of the murderer, Jefferson Hope, and we discover a world where a bunch of self-proclaimed godmen establish a city for their followers. Their word is the law, and any disagreement results in severe punishment. Quite similar to what is happening these days, isn't it? In the end, all you have is sympathy for the culprit and a number of unanswered questions. Well, that's not a bad thing necessarily. Unanswered questions open the door for interpretations and deductions. For example, I'm still trying to figure out who the hell was disguised as the old lady that claimed the lost ring. My problems with the novel. Though I thoroughly enjoyed reading the book and have resolved to read the remaining 3 stories as well, I had a couple of problems with the book. First, it is racist on more than one occasion. The way Dr. Watson describes the street assistants as dirty Arabs is extremely offensive. It depicts how the British, the so-called pioneers of the civilized world, were actually the most racist people in the world. At a time when revolutionary campaigns like Black Lives Matter are at the peak, such statements in the book made me extremely mad. The second problem is the language. It is too formal for my liking, which again seems to be a British thing of yore. If it were to be written today, it could have been more fun to read. Apart from these couple of things, I loved the novel and highly recommend it to young readers. Especially, it is a must read for young and aspiring writers.